If you work hard on your health, but you're never quite sure whether it's actually paying off, you're in the right place. Almost everything that truly protects you is free, and it's a little bit boring, and it beats the more expensive biohacks by a huge margin. Today we're going to discuss a single question you can ask about pretty much any health habit to figure out in about 5 seconds whether it's going to actually do anything for you, whether it's worth your time, your attention, and your money. So much health advice spends enormous energy debating does it work, while skipping the much harder question, which is if it works, how much does it actually matter for my health? Here's what that looks like in real life. It's easy to get tricked into watching interesting health content that's really asking marginal questions. What do I mean by that? Now, for example, someone might debate what is the optimal supplement stack, or the optimal peptides and dosing schedules, or whatever it might be, while in practice, their daily diet and food intake is low in dietary fiber because fruits and vegetables and nuts and legumes and whole grains rarely make it onto their plate. Now, to be very clear, this is not a problem of motivation. It's not a personal failing. It's not a problem of discipline. What I'm talking about is attention, very naturally getting pulled toward what's interesting to talk about and listen to instead of what's necessarily most consequential for our health. This video is a guide, it's a reminder for all of us on how to capture the easy wins for your health. First, getting started matters more than being optimal. Most health behaviors follow the same type of dose-response curve. What I mean by that is that the first changes you make, those are going to give you the biggest returns on your investment of time and effort. Later refinements, they buy you smaller improvements, and eventually the curve starts to flatten. Take, for example, the relationship between the minutes you spend doing physical activity each week and your risk of all-cause mortality. From one look at this data, you can see that the fastest improvements in all-cause mortality risk come at that very left side of the curve. Going from 0 minutes per week of physical activity to even a very little bit of physical activity, there's a huge benefit there. Now, of course, it's technically even better to go from 100 minutes of moderate activity to 300 minutes, for example, but my point is that the first changes that you make in any domain of health tend to yield outsized returns on your invested effort. Doing something is much better than doing nothing, even if you're not perfect. The thing to be aware of is that people spend their time, their money, their attention chasing the flat parts of curves with supplements and protocols and so on, while never fully capturing the easy returns on effort across multiple domains of health. And so if you care about return on effort, the question is much more, where does most of the benefit arrive, rather than worrying about what is optimal. Step count is another great example of this effect. Large prospective cohort studies consistently show that moving from very, very low daily step counts into the moderate range is associated with a substantial reduction in all-cause mortality risk. That biggest drop in risk happens early, nowhere near that 10,000 step benchmark that we all hear about. Across multiple data sets, the curve steepens rapidly up to about 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day, maybe a little bit higher in younger adults, and then it begins to flatten. And additional steps beyond that still appear to be beneficial, but the marginal gains are smaller. In plain terms, to be very clear, going from 1,000 steps per day to 5,000 matters a lot. But going from 10,000 steps to 14,000 steps matters less, even though it's that same gap of 4,000 extra steps. If you're currently below, say, 5,000 steps per day, that's where your attention pays the highest dividend. Don't worry about whether you're going to be able to get to 10,000 or 15,000. Start with capturing the biggest returns on your effort and go from there. Across movement and strength and nutrition and sleep, the pattern is the same. The body rewards initiation far more generously than perfection. The steep part of the curve is about consistency, and it's easy to miss because the internet is optimized to spotlight behaviors that look impressive and sound fun to talk about, rather than those that most reliably reduce your risk. In strength training, small doses give a huge payoff. Strength training often gets treated as kind of like this all or nothing identity. Either you lift seriously or you don't. And that misses the important part. When researchers examine muscle strengthening activity at the population level, the biggest benefits in terms of mortality risk come at pretty modest weekly volumes, not extreme amounts of time in the gym every day. 2 sessions per week, 30 minutes each, captures that benefit. Across the large studies pooled in one meta-analysis, literally just 30 to 60 minutes a week total of muscle strengthening activity was associated with roughly a 10 to 20% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared with no strength training at all. And that range was actually where the maximum observed risk reduction was reached. The influence of higher volumes was less clear, at least when it comes to living longer. So to get these huge benefits in mortality reduction, you don't need daily lifting, you don't need perfect programming, you just have to start regularly picking up some weights, a couple sessions per week, 30 minutes per session, that's all it takes. It's critical to maintain muscle mass and strength across adulthood, and that has little to do with weight loss. There are these incredible benefits to strength training, totally independent of your body weight. That shows up downstream in glucose regulation, reduced risk of type 2 diabetes, decreased injury risk, increased functional independence later in life. And once again, the curve for strength training is very steep very early. Don't worry about being optimal with your form on your lifting, do it safely, but you should be worrying about capturing the biggest benefits, those early returns on your effort. When it comes to sleep, regularity is important too, not just duration. Sleep advice, especially on the internet, often fixates on duration, where 8 hours has become this kind of moral target in some corners of the internet. And of course, it is true that getting enough sleep does matter for your health in many ways. You don't want to be sitting at typically getting 4 or 5 or even 5.5 or 6 hours of sleep per day. But interestingly, growing evidence suggests that sleep timing, the regularity of your sleep timing, matters on its own, separate from duration. Large cohort analyses show that people with highly irregular sleep-wake patterns have higher risks of cardiometabolic disease and mortality, even after adjusting for sleep duration. Practically speaking, this means that a consistent wake time matters, and big swings in your sleep timing across the week are costly to your health. Your body doesn't know what a weekend is. This is one of those behaviors that feels boring because it works through boring mechanisms that don't feel very special. If you want, you can spice it up. You can call it circadian alignment or hormonal rhythms or autonomic balance or whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, and it appears to matter for your health. A useful way to think about all of this: when you're evaluating a health strategy, ask one simple question. Ask, does the benefit come early or only after sustained optimization? If the answer is that much of the benefit comes early, you should give it your serious attention. Things like nutrition, physical activity, social connection, and sleep all fall in that category. But if the answer is, well, it only really matters once everything else is perfect, that's where you've got to be cautious. Now, this is where most supplement routines and wellness protocols, they're falling in that category. Most meaningful health improvement happens way before worrying about optimization even enters the picture. Now, of course, I'm not arguing against curiosity or refinement. I just want to make sure that you're trying to capture the easy part of the curve first. That's where you should focus most of your attention. I don't want you to feel discouraged by the pressure to be optimal. Doing a little bit consistently is far better than doing nothing while waiting for the right plan or the right form or your schedule to free up so you can do XYZ when it comes to going to the gym or doing physical activity or nutrition. Getting started now, whatever extent you can, is what you should do first.